play today in this exploration as this this group of us, we get to dive in together. And Kelly, have you been with us before?
I haven't. No, this is my first meeting. I've just actually come across IFS, and my mind's blown away. I've just always felt like I need something to get to there's a lot of self-loathing, and this seems so gentle and loving. I really, really like it. So I'm quite excited to get to know the different parts of myself.
Wonderful. And let's just see if we can all relate to this. Because some of us have been doing this for a very long time, like Connie and Inga. And it's like, and some of us, and when we hear of Kelly's, what do they call it in Buddhism? It's like this, what do they call it? It's like this new mind, innocent mind. They have a word for it. I forget when someone's just this openness to, Inga's got it.
I think they call it beginner's mind, right?
Beginner's mind.
Yes.
Right. And as we hear Kelly's enthusiasm for this, can we find that in each of us, the beginner's mind, just the openness to what's going to be new here? It's like a buffet, a beautiful buffet that we've never tasted before. Can we receive the gift that Kelly offers us in this beginner's mind for all of us, the innocence of this moment? Kelly, anything else? Anything that would be particularly of interest for you today as we dive in?
I've only just really started noticing the different types of me, but the two really, really dominant types that I'm finding at the minute is like a motivator, and then a little bit like what Connie says. So the motivator can take me really, really high into the clouds, disassociate from everything. It's all fun and seeking. And then the other one can take me really low, where I don't know nothing. I'm like the worst person on earth. And I'm starting to see them types and get like a little bit of balance with them.
Yes.
I've literally only like 2 days, started talking to them both and trying to get a bit of balance. Because that's the pattern that since I've been doing spirituality, that's definitely my pattern.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. And for some of us, we might have a part that comes up that says, oh gosh, but I did that 10 years ago, what Kelly's speaking of, like gotten a sense of those and mapped them. We might have a part that says that. And can we appreciate that part if we do have one that has a sense of, well, I've been on this road for a long time and I've progressed and there's, and just to notice that part. And can we see it as a part? If we have one that says something like that. And then as we hear what Kelly points to, what she's calling this motivator, one that helps it transcends and goes into the sky and maybe disassociates some and going there. And then this overwhelmed part, an overwhelmed part, if he goes in the opposite direction. And as she describes this, just as we did with Connie, notice how intimate you can be with her parts as she describes this. And you're just like God said, this is really tedious. Why are you asking us to do this? Because if we can find endearment and love and intimacy with Kelly's parts, it becomes so much easier to find them with our own. And it also connects us to the most beautiful thing, this shared humanity. That's what Connie's speaking of, these universal archetypes of our parts. Find that there's nothing foreign to me. Thank you, Kelly. Glad you're here with us. And this is so fun with new people. Anne, have you been with us before?
Sorry, no, I haven't. And I'm sorry, I must have been a bit late. I haven't been with you before, but I've been listening to and exploring this. I've been involved in non-duality for quite a lot of years. And I'm just realizing that there's lots of rooms that need to go into with the different parts. And that's working. So I'm working on it at home with these parts, and that's working really well for me. I feel like I found a little treasure trove in that these doors are now opening, and these parts that I've been trying to push away and being fearful of, I'm now welcoming in and trying to get the communication going with those parts and working together. Instead of like the arguments that they've been having from, you know, the different parts. And it's so freeing. It's just so freeing to allow that to happen. And then, oh, and there's another little part here. And what's that one got to say? And another one's coming in. And now that the house is unlocked, they're like, oh, she's opened the doors and let us out. We've been locked in here for so long, and now she's letting us out. So they all want to say something, like kind of lost children. And I can see this works. I'm so excited to be here. When I got the email today, it's like, yay, I can go.
Yay.
And because I get so much from listening to other people, because I think we've all got the same parts, so it doesn't matter if I'm sharing or listening. It's just, if I hear someone else, then a part of me comes up and goes, oh, I've got that too. I'm here too.
So how about this? What you're describing, and what Anne's describing, is this house, and that rooms have been locked and parts have been locked away. As you hear her saying that, can you hear almost the sound of any of your parts that might still be kind of locked away and saying, hey, I want that door open, just like Anne's doors have been open. I want to be open. I want the door open for me too, so I can come out. I have something to say. Notice if you can sense that in your system. Parts that have been kind of locked away. Now, we're not opening doors here. This is called effortless IFS. So we just become aware of. We're not having to do anything. There's nothing that needs to be done. We're just becoming aware of our system and aware of if we can hear parts that are still locked. And the nice thing is we have protectors, right? There's a reason these doors have been closed. See if we can, how you can hear that there's a reason these doors have been closed. And that the parts of us that have been, it's their best way of taking care of us, of kind of keeping us from feeling some shame, discomfort, some wrongness, some whatever these parts are. And what we're going to explore in kind of a flowing, light, loving, maybe playful way today is just our systems. And as we do, maybe some doors will be opened, but that's not our agenda. The agenda is just to become aware of and to celebrate what's here. And as we hear of Anne's parts that have come out and like, hey, I have something to say. And there's a liberation and there's like a returning of some life energy here in the parts. Is there a sense of celebration here as we hear that? Can we feel it and appreciate what's happening in her that she describes? And this is where in IFS and effortless IFS, there's two sides to it. Anne mentions she has a big history in non-duality. And for us in effortless IFS, non-duality is just the sense of self, this beingness that's here, that's intrinsically here. And we get to know it more and more as our nature. And we get to know it more and more that nothing is really separate from it. And as we sink in and we dive into that, we get to know it more and more. That's just half of it. The other half is what Anne's pointing to, these parts, these aspects of us that have been locked away, that have been separated from. And this is just the welcoming them back into the connection. supporting them and unburdening, to let go of the burdens, the backpacks that they've been carrying. Thank you, Anne. And before we go further, let's just say, how are you doing? How's everybody doing? How are you doing? How are you? And then let's go deeper into that. How are you? Let's notice what arises. How are you? Can you hear the parts that arise? Oh, I'm excited about today. I'm a little bored. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm feeling a little vulnerable in the group. I don't know everybody. What parts are here for you? And as you hear the parts, where do you hear them from? Can you get a sense of a location? Oh, that part that's excited, that's out on the right side. Part that's scared, that's in my belly. Like, how are you? And can we notice a number of parts that are here? And then, as Anne mentions, non-duality, the self, this beingness, do you also notice, what do they arise in? Is there a quality of self that's here, of beingness, of peace, of calm, of connectedness, of flow, of ease, of love, of tenderness? You notice that that's just here. That's what this is arising in. And can you be aware of all of this and the how are you? Because this is what we're interested in today. Not anything that I'm saying or really what anyone else is saying. We're interested in your system and what's here for you and celebrating you. Just as you're noticing what's happening inside of you, see how much you can be aware of simultaneously. How many parts can you be aware of? And often in this game, sometimes it helps to find metaphors. It's like, wow, it's like a planetarium that you went to. It's like the planetarium. The self is like the sky, the space, the galaxy. And the parts are like planets in my galaxy. And see if you can be aware of, in one view, just a couple parts. Like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not doing this right. I should do something different. I'm bored. If you can be aware of your planets, or for some, it's just a stage and they're like actors or dancers. Or for some, it's an infinite hot tub and the parts just soak in the hot tub. You be aware of, and as you're see if you can, as you're aware of this, maybe visually, maybe auditorially, or maybe somatically. I'm just going to do my quick housekeeping for our new people. That I'm a mediator, I'm not a psychotherapist, and that this isn't the IFS of psychotherapy, and that for me, we're all colleagues and friends exploring together. And if everyone's good being responsible for their own journeys today, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Great. And then I also have the recording on, and I always do this, and I do this to share with people who can't make this, who are interested in it. However, only my square is shared, only my image, never your image is shared. However, the audio that you share here today could be shared and included in this. But two things with that. One is, at the end, if there's anything that you shared that you're uncomfortable with, just tell me and I can just go back and delete it. It's no problem. And the other thing is, Effortless IFS is a little different in that we're interested in what our parts are longing for. And so we don't go so much into the story of the parts. Instead, we listen for, what are they longing for fulfillment, for a sense of home. And we help them find that that's here. And so, again, anything that's uncomfortable that you share, just let me know and we will remove that. If everyone is good that this might be shared publicly, but only my image, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Great. Great. And so again, let's just notice, how are you? Let's notice our system. It's like maybe there was a mind, like, God, that was a lot to think about. I'm a little confused, a part that's understanding. And we're aware of what's here, our parts. And maybe like Anne, we have parts, we're even aware of some parts that we can't even see yet, that are just kind of hidden. Maybe they're in the basement. We're aware of our parts, and we're also aware of the space. And then we have Inga, Zoe, and Anne, who have been with me a number of times. And I'd love to hear for them, like, what's here with the how are you? Maybe like, what are your two loudest parts right now? And what's the most pronounced flavor of beingness that's here? And if there's something else that's bubbling, feel free. And Inga, would you lead us off?
Sure. Thank you, Sid. Yeah, my parts are not really that loud. So, I mean, they are here. So I have a part that is excited. I mean, a really happy part. It's happy because, like, that tells me, like, okay, it's a part, it's happy. First of all, I'm here with you. And then I found a way to sit almost on the floor where I can move a little bit and not just sit very. The part is like, oh, wow, this feels really good. like a a child that found a new toy. This is cool. I also have a planning part here. It's like, okay, this meeting runs until, and then, okay, I have to do this, and I got another call, and how's it all gonna work out? I know this part pretty well. So those I would say the most prominent parts. But I experience more a peace, a groundedness, like how, I don't know how to describe. Peace alone is not, it's not it. There is a groundedness that feels very safe, and stable, and depends a little bit where in my body I feel it seems. So a little bit more. I also feel a presence that is very close to my parts, very intimate with them, very much holding, embracing, or embracing is not the right word. Like it's all around, It's,
Let me bring everyone into this, Inga, because I don't want us to miss this. So part of because usually you might go to workshop and there's this guy in front facilitating, and it's like, okay, what does he have to say? This is very different. This is there's 7 of us here, and like as each of us share, it's like of their precious systems, for us to see if we can find that they're really pointing to our systems. Then it becomes such a rich experiential journey. Like we don't want to, what Inga's sharing, the preciousness that she's sharing, this child, this happiness is here. That child that's like a newfound toy that gets to play. It's like, wow, I can move around. I can move my body on the floor, and I get to be here with new friends. It's like, can we find that? Like a part of us, it's like, yay, something new. Like that kind of joy, exhilaration in our system. And for sometimes that gets covered up, it gets obscured by other parts. But see if you can relate to that in Inga's. Inga shared that part. And then she shared another part that as adults we're probably even more familiar with, a planning part. Well, there are things I need to do after the meeting today, and I need this and this and this and this. This wonderful planning part that takes care of us. Can you find that in your system? And if just hearing the idea of it or the description doesn't really work, maybe you can just feel into where Inga described the planning in her system. Like when I get off, I have to do this and I have to do this, thinking about this, because there's a resonance. We can go deeper into this. We can do it somatically. And just as you hear her speaking of her planning part, just notice, how do you respond? Is there endearment? Oh, this planning part in her that's taking care of her. Or does a critic come up? It's like, oh, see, there you go. There's that planning part that gets in the way of self, of this non-duality that Anne speaks of, this piece. Notice what arises if we can find that. And then, like that Anne speaks of non-duality, half of this game is getting to know beingness, getting to know self. Dick Schwartz calls it self-leadership, like sinking in and being intimate with what is intrinsically here in us. Notice where you go with that when I say that. And then Inga is describing how self is for her, for this causeless beingness in her. She describes as peace, groundedness, stability, presence, intimacy. How do you Do you know these qualities in your system? Do you know peace? What's most like peace that's here now? What's most like peace that's here now? And if you're not finding this, we have a trick because we have Inga here, and we can just kind of tune into Inga and see if we can find it like a tuning fork, like a piano key. Oh, that's peace. Now I know it. What's most like peace? Groundedness. What's it like, this beingness as a groundedness? Is there a sense of embodiment that comes for us in that? And then Inga describes an intimacy, like there's an intimacy with the parts from here, this beingness as an intimacy. What's that like? That was my theme that I described in the email today. Intimacy. Or as we heard Anne describe, these doors open and these parts coming out, like this intimacy with our parts. Or Kelly, as she described, this overwhelm and this motivator. It's like, what's our intimacy with what's arising in us? And do we have to do anything for intimacy, or is intimacy just here? Is intimacy just a quality of our nature, like openness, intimacy? What else you got for us, Inga, and bringing all that together?
Well, thank you, Sid. You know, my happy part was really glad that you mentioned her. She was like, oh, it feels really good. And I can see how, you know, the planning part, it seems like the more the parts get to know the self and the more interaction there is or has been in the past, the less it takes for the part to notice, you know, oh, like safety is here. And the planning part was like, oh, safety is here. You know, I can just relax. You know, it's like at times it really doesn't take much at all. Parts just notice, oh, you know, self is here, and they can relax. They come up like a wave and then just subside. That's how it often feels like. Or melt into, I don't know, sometimes it feels like relaxing or melting. Yeah.
Thank you, Inga.
Well, thank you.
So where do we go with that? Where do we go with what Inga just said? What she's describing, she said, like, the more her system is getting to know self, the more intimate it becomes with these qualities. There's a sense of, wow, it's just kind of always here sometimes. It just kind of blossoms. This is the blossoming of self. This is where, or, you know, Anne uses the word non-duality for this. It just kind of blossoms. This interconnectedness, this unity, the self that's always here. How does your system relate to it? Inga described there's a safety that's here in her system, and that as parts start recognizing or updating, for our IFS word, that safety is always here, something changes. Like the parts get to relax. What's your word for the quality of being, the quality of self that's most present in your system? It's kind of, there's one default quality of self, of this beingness for you. Would it be, Inga also mentioned the word presence. Would it be presence? Well, there's a presence here. Or for some, there's just, this guy Rupert Spira, he always asks, are you aware? There's a sense that, do we notice that there's always awareness? Like there's awareness of the room you're in. There's awareness of the words that are being spoken. There's awareness of the sensation. And so for some of us, it's just, there's awareness here that's always here. Like the parts are being seen. Or for some, there's a calmness, a presence, a stillness. What's your word for this self that's always here? And then last question, do your parts know that that is here? Do your parts know that they're not alone? Do your parts know that they are not alone? That there is being the self-presence, whatever your word is here. And is it that some of our parts know it and some don't? Like the ones that are back down in the down underground, those don't know it yet, but some of them do. Notice that. That's the updating in IFS as parts start updating. Woo, that's a lot, everybody. So we're kind of diving in pretty deep here. And let's just take a little breath. You can join Inga with the movement, her happy part that's like, hey, I can move. Yay. It's like this is like Connie's theme. We can play. This can be light as we explore together and get to know each other and just celebrate. Whew, that's a lot. So nothing, you might have an understanding part. It's like, I didn't really understand some of what Inga said, or like this idea of like self always being here. Like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen in my system. Great, 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 Anne, as Anne nods. None of that is necessary. This is not, there is no advanced and beginner there. If anything, Kelly might be the one leading us all day today with her beginner mind and her openness and the innocence of seeing all of this. Woo! And so before we go to Anne, let me just ask you again, how are you? What we're interested in is you. We're interested in what's here. What are the precious expressions of life that are happening in you? And what are they arising in? What's the space? What's the galaxy? What's the hot tub? What's the stage? And lastly, is it okay that these parts are here? Is it okay, even if there's a cacophony of sound, or what Kelly was describing earlier, if you have a part that's like that overwhelm part, is it okay that that's here? Is everything welcomed? And if your system is being like, no, Sid, everything is not welcome here. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. We also have a treat here that you're not alone. There's 6 of us with you. And notice if you can feel that, this connectedness, this care, this love, this welcoming that's here. We don't have to do this by ourselves. There's this field that we share. Like they call it, this poet I love, Rumi, calls it Rumi's field, this place beyond right doing and wrongdoing. Meet me there. Anne, what's going on inside of Anne?
Well, you know, when you first started asking how we were, I started writing down some things, but then I realized that, and they were like my muted part, my submissive part, my nonverbal parts. I feel like a lot of my parts are nonverbal, and they've been, and another part of me disdains them. And they've been locked away in the basement in the dungeon for a long time.
And let me pause with that. You just said a whole lot there. You just said a whole lot just in putting up about these parts, these nonverbal parts, these muted parts that have been locked away in the basement. And Anne used the word dungeon. Let's just see if we can all relate to that. Some parts that we have locked away, and for them, it feels like being locked away in a dungeon. We've just been separated. See if we can relate to that. And as we hear Anne speak of these parts, just notice how we respond to that. If there's just a dearness that we feel towards these parts that have been locked away, that have been muted, that are just submissive and quiet, have been locked away. As we hear of these parts in her, how do we feel towards these in her? Is there understanding? Is there love? Is there care? Is there nurture? Notice that. And then Anne speaks of a part that has disdain towards these parts, these submissive parts, these muted parts, these ones that have been locked away. And when you hear that, this is going to be a little more difficult. Can you see the innocence in that part in her? The one that has disdain towards these parts that have been locked away. Well, you're right, they should be locked away. These are problem parts. We don't like these parts. We don't want these parts. They should be. It's like oops. Oh gosh, let me unlock this in case that was an accident. Give me just a minute. So Yeah, hopefully Connie will find her way back. So can we hear the innocence? Oh, good, she's back. Can we find the innocence in Ann Jay's part? The one that has disdain. One that has disdain. Can we see the innocence, how it's doing its very best to protect the system? And then lastly, can you find these parts in your own system that Anne spoke of? Can we relate to our own system? Anne, please tell us more. In no way did I mean to cut you off. I didn't want us to miss the gifts that you were offering us.
Well, they don't feel like gifts to me. So there's a part that despairs over ever experiencing the self. And, that part and the despair, the disdainful part are pals or something. And then, when Inga talked about groundedness, I just had an experience, and I felt profound groundlessness, a feeling like I have nothing inside to hold on to, and nothing is telling me I'm okay. And on the other hand, I do feel, and I take for granted the parts that are more vital, more life affirming, like the excited part, the joyful part, the curious part. They're there too, but the other parts are louder or something.
Yes. So let's pause there with that. That we say there's a sense of nothing to hold on to, and nobody telling me I'm okay.
Me not telling me I'm okay.
Yeah. Can we all find this? And we're not, be careful, we're not doing something. We're not, okay, I'm going to go into that. I'm going to feel it fully. We don't need to do that, but we're just, if we can be aware of that in our systems, because so much of this game is, to use Inga's word, intimacy. It's like, how intimate are we with what's arising inside? And is it okay that Anne's having this experience, but there's nothing inside of me that's telling me I'm okay? Is that okay? And can we all relate to a sense of nothing to hold on to, nothing to ground? It's just, maybe it's an emptiness. This is where Anne's pointing us, is really like some of the most advanced edges of an IFS journey in touching some of these places. Please go on, Anne.
Then you asked us how we describe the sense of self, I guess. And you said awareness and presence. And I think I do have an awareness of these parts as they're playing out. It's just that the awareness doesn't help me stop judging, for instance, or comparing.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't
Yes.
It doesn't stop me. My parts don't know they're not alone. That was the other aspect of the question. So that's basically what I have.
Thank you. So when we hear Ann Jay say, her parts, no, they don't, they do feel alone. The parts do feel alone. That goes to the very core of our journey here. What about your parts? Are they alone, or are they being kind of met the way Inga described, by a sense of, well, there's self here, there's beingness here, there's a sense of welcoming care, or there's a presence here? What's the experience with your parts? And when Anne describes her parts feeling alone, notice how we can relate to that. Notice your parts that have that experience of being alone. And these parts that are alone, is there compassion for them? As we hear about Anne's system, the parts that feel alone, is there compassion and love and welcoming of those aspects, the ones that feel, like Anne was saying, judged and compared? They feel judged and compared. And we all relate to that, parts in us that judge and compare, and what it's like to experience that. Just how much, honestly, how much of what Anne's sharing, how much of that gift can we receive? Can we receive, and finding it either in our own systems, or just being so intimate with her system and just appreciating of what she's sharing, and the love that we have for her parts, the endearment for her parts that feel alone, and they don't have a sense of, there's no grounding here, there's nothing to hold on to. They just feel judged. And if you can find endearment, like deep, intimate endearment with Anne's system, notice how that also translates to your own system, because nothing that we're hearing is foreign to any of us. And any final words?
I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we go to Zoe, and then we're going to take a dive, we'll take a little dive together. I might even turn on some music for our parts to celebrate them as we go into this together. But before we go to Zoe, let's just, because so much has been happening. Let me just see, is there anything bubbling that would like to be shared by anybody? Anything coming up that's like, God, I really want to share this, or I have a part that wants to share it?
I have a part that's coming up quite strong. A little girl, she wants to do cartwheels, she's excited, but she's also scared that she won't be accepted, so she wants to show off. She wants to show off. She just wanted me to share that.
Yeah. Oh. Wow. So my system resonates, and like something in me just wants to like get up and dance or something. And like when we hear Kelly's system part that wants to do cartwheels, it's just like, yay! What is that? What's the expression? What has that in you? Like Inga was describing this part that was happy, that got to kind of roll around and move. When we hear Kelly's part that wants to do cartwheels, it's like, maybe it's like an intrinsic, a joy. What's that like in you, in all of us? Like, anybody else have something that would like to, that's bubbling, that you'd like to share before we go to Zoe? Wasn't that lovely hearing Kelly's foot, hearing the pounding, the movement there? And it's just the life, the aliveness, this aliveness. This is what we celebrate. And you know, and our non-dual Anne, it's like when she speaks of non-duality, it's just going deeper into this and deeper in the celebration of everything that arises that's separate from us. It's like, what is the spiritual path, but just deepening into this celebration of what is, this love of what is, this acceptance of what is. Anything else bubbling?
I have a part that just, I don't know if it's okay, but that would love to speak to NJ and say, well, I can so relate. I mean, this has been some of my journey, you know, this parts feeling so alone and like there's no one, there's nothing. And so I just want to say I really hear that. I really hear you.
Anything else? Just one last thing before we go to Zoe. Because sometimes on this path, there's a sense of there's a path and we're progressing, and that's wonderful. But there's this other aspect of Effortless IFS, which is what they call the pathless path, or the loving what is. It's a sense of this is it. We are this beingness. We are this love. We are this expression, that there is no place to go. And that if non-duality Anne is speaking of everything is this beingness, everything is love, and Anne J is speaking of, well, there's a sense of aloneness and separation and ungroundedness. It's all, if we can just glimpse this, that it's all this precious life, it's all this beingness. Perhaps it's all okay. It's all just this divine expression. All right. So as we go to Zoe, just last question, how are you? How are you? As we notice our own systems. And then what do you think's there in Zoe? As we tune into Zoe, look at Zoe, like, what is self there? What is self gonna be? Like, is it flow? Is it peace? Or is it just, and what are her parts? And there's a sense of maybe the parts are completely blocking. Like, I can't even find self right now. I'm so in a part. Or like, what do we guess is there? And maybe we can tune in a little bit with our bodies. Okay, you ready? She's gonna give us the answer. And what's going on?
Well, the quality of beingness is sunshine, kind of that connection to nature, and that's my happy place, my place that throughout all my life I've always been able to come back to. I guess what I hear you say, that default place of self. I just really needed to feel the sun on my face to remind myself that I was part of something much bigger. Then internally, I've been quite triggered, so there's quite a lot of active parts, and really resonate with bits of what everybody's said so far. I have a very fearful part at the moment today, and the fear is sitting in a boat, and then as I was kind of spending time with that fear before coming here today, the boat was in the sea, and there just was no land. There was just no land. And the sea just felt, I don't know, like that, like existential loneliness of there's just nothing at the core of my being today that I can connect to. And because I'm very aware of those two parts, there's quite a lot of other parts that are kind of distracting me. I've got a part that just wants me to get on with planning, like Inga said. I'm aware of a part that wants me to just go and get busy, to doing other things. There's a part that's then quite resistant to the things that you're saying, Sid, and just thinking, well, yeah, I do know this. You know, why can't I feel into this today? And then there's just a part which is kind of just sick to the back teeth of all this, and like we just wants to like really, come on, the sun's shining, there's these beautiful people in front of me, there's so much like joy to connect with here. Let's just cover over that fear and loneliness and just get up and dance. Come on, everybody, let's do it. Yeah, so quite a range there, Sid.
Yes. Zoe, I'm curious. First, for all of us, how much of this are we able to receive? How much of this are we able to connect with the Zoe, the gifts that she's offering, are we able to receive? To either have this endearment with these parts she's describing and this background of the sunshine of connection with nature? Or are we able to receive it by it resonates with parts of us? It's like, gosh, are I still doing this? I just want to be out in the sun and dance. Ugh, 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 or I have things I need to plan, or ugh, I'm the loneliness of being lost at sea. How much of this are we able to receive, to take in? And then my question for you, Zoe, and really for all of us, is what's the relation between this self, this default self for you, which you describe as this connected with nature, this sunshine? What's the relationship of that, of this self that's here, and these precious parts that are arising, the lost at sea, the the resistance, that get busy, the sick of this, the distraction? What's the relation? What do you find?
I just went kind of straight to the bottom of the ocean, and I had an image of the core of me connecting to the core of the planet, and like in this huge ocean that just looks totally hopeless, actually going right down to the depths. Actually, there is something there.
And what do you find there? For all of us, if we can follow Zoe in our own way, going into the hopelessness, the emptiness, the loneliness, the lostness that's here, if we can keep kind of sinking in as she sinks into the very bottom of the ocean, if we can sink into whatever the despair is, the lostness, the emptiness is in our system, we can keep seeking in, and she finds this connectedness in hers. It's the metaphor of connecting to the center of the planet through the bottom of the floor of the ocean, that there's something there. What do you find as you sink into this? Is something found as you get more subtle and sinking in? And tell us about that, Zoe. What do you find?
I find something really soft, something that's kind of like encompassing. And I find kind of little shards of gold, and they're little parts of me. And I feel like I can just rest there, that I just feel I can rest there. There's nothing that I really have to do. I'm always looking for that thing that I have to do, but I don't know, down there, actually at the bottom of that ocean, it's really, really quiet and still. And there's nothing to do.
When you feel this, tune into this quiet and stillness, what do you find in that quiet and stillness? And for all of us, what's your version of this? As you let yourself sink in to the emptiness, to the loneliness, to the nothing to hold on to, what do you find? Do you find quiet and stillness? Do you find groundedness? What do you find? What's this like for you, Zoe, when you touch this quiet and stillness?
Would they be satisfied for a moment, just to pay attention?
Peace. I find peace. Peace that's beneath everything that's going on.
Offering just for the next 20 minutes.
And acceptance.
Setting an intention after the meditation to come back to whatever the parts wanted to share.
And there's a calmness. I am calm. I am peace.
For all of us, as we're following this in our own systems, maybe there's some parts that are kind of, this is uncomfortable. I really can't do what Zoe's doing here. This is a little too much. Asking me to go into this emptiness, this place of loneliness, and to sink into that. And there are parts that are like, we're not going to do that. We don't want to feel that. We don't want to go to the bottom of the ocean as Zoe's doing in her system. Can we celebrate that? The okay-ness of parts that are like, okay, we'll go down 10 feet underwater, and that's far enough. That's really far enough. It's kind of scary. I can't see down there. I don't want to go there. And can we just be like, yes, perfect. That's where I'm just going to float right here and see what I find here. And I'm curious in a moment just to hear what parts are coming up for people, because Zoe's really taking us to such an exquisite place through her system. Zoe, what else are you finding there? Anything else you'd like to share?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, thank you. And last question for you, Zoe, with your okay. I'm just wanting to, like, this can be scary for parts with where Zoe just went, right? It's like, oh, we're just gonna, this aloneness, this ocean, this emptiness, we're just gonna sink into it. We're gonna go into the depths of it. Are there any parts that are kind of freaking out a little bit? Like, what have you just done? Are you out of your mind?
Not for me, no.
No. Okay. Nice. Thank you. Let me open it up to see how's everybody doing with this. How's everybody doing? Just what's going on?
That was really scary for me.
Yeah.
there was like a cage with a little girl in it and teeth, and it didn't want me to go near it. Sorry.
Oh no, they're speaking for all of us, Kelly. And my guess is we can all find parts that have a response like this, like Kelly's. Is there, in this moment, Kelly, for the part that's like, this was really scary, and is there okayness here, or is there still is there a sense of overwhelm in what where Zoe just directed us? What are you finding here now? As we care for each other, as we support the safe space of the seven of us, for all of our parts.
I can feel myself calm and yeah, I can. I don't like to be shocked, and I don't think I've gone that deep before. But it's real, you know. There's a beauty in it, you know, that I've managed to, like, you know, to reach that. Even though it's painful, there's a beauty in it. It's part of me that wants to help the little girl, wants to love the little girl, be compassionate to her.
And can the little girl, and for all of us, any parts of us that have a little contraction around this, a little, oh, that was too much, or I'm not sure about that, can they feel inside of us the compassion that's here? Kind of the acceptance, the love, the tenderness that's here inside of you and amongst the group here, the beingness that's here, sense of the acceptance here. See if she can feel that, Kelly, and for all of us, if our parts can feel like what we call self, what we call this intrinsic nature that's here. And let's also notice, sometimes there's a part that comes up, like when we see something like Zoe's, like, oh, I should be able to do that too. I should do it. I should be able to go further. I should be able to go deeper. I should be able to do something different. Can we notice, and Jay knows this one. Can we recognize that part? It's just a part, right? That has an idea. Wow, what Zoe did was so beautiful. I want to be able to want to be able to sink through and in this emptiness and this lostness too, to find okayness, to find ground, to find quiet, okayness, peace. It's just a part. We notice that part. See if you can find any part that says that you should do it differently. See if you can find that as a voice. Like, where do you hear it? Where do you hear it? And how's it going, Kelly? What are you finding now?
I feel like there's another part in front of the little girl. Like a protector, but it knows I'm in a safe place.
The little girl, and take it in. the safety that's here, the safety from a part, the safety from self, safety from your intrinsic nature, and the safety from this field, this space that we're all in together. See if your parts, for all of us, any parts that are a little scared, uncomfortable, vulnerable, see if they can feel this that Inga was speaking of, this safety that's just here, this ok-ness that's here, or that Zoe was speaking of, I am okay. The sense of these qualities of self, they weren't just outside of her. She knew them. I am peace. I am okay. See if they can feel that. Or if you need help, you could just tune into Zoe a little bit. Zoe found this for all of us. We can just tune in to her. I am okay. I am peace. How's it going, Kelly?
I can feel that now. I can feel the peace.
Nice. Notice if there's any part that's being critical of this little girl, that's saying, oh, this little girl shouldn't be here. This is a little embarrassing, or I shouldn't express, I shouldn't allow this, the emotes, the discomfort to come. It's just a part. Just notice if there's a part like that. And we can all relate to that part, right? We can all relate to that part. Kelly, I'm going to check with everybody else, but as we go around, just if anything's coming up you're wanting to share, and this always goes for you and Jay too, and all of us, just kind of raise your hand and we'll stop at any point and come to you. Yes, and Jay, great.
Well, I just definitely had the part of me that was like, I should be doing it like she's doing it, so yeah.
Yeah. And when we hear NJ say that, can we all just find endearment for that part of her that's like, well, I should be able to do that too. I've done psychology and spiritual stuff for years. I know how to do that. I should be able to do that. It's like, yeah, we can all, there's the endearment for that part, how we can all relate to that part. What else is here, gang? This was like Zoe took us to this just magnificent journey. What else we got?
My mum part came up and wanted to give Kelly a big hug. My mum part, the hugging part. But I loved Zoe. With Zoe, I just blissed out while she was there. It was beautiful.
Yes.
Lovely.
We hear Anne speak of her mom part, this maternal love that's often described as a quality of our beingness. What's most like this that we find in our own systems to what Anne's speaking of, Anne? This mom part, this maternal love. What's most like maternal love that's here in you now? Who else would like to share?
Talking about maternal love, I had a part coming up that is really questioning. We talk about self-like parts, and what I've been seeing in my system is that more and more there are comforting words coming up, and that's not how I usually experience my being, but parts really like it, and so there is something that is, and they are willing to taste it, like when they hear something like, you're so okay the way you are, and they're like, huh, let's taste it, let's see how it feels like, let's try it on. So that just came up when I heard you talk about the maternal love. And they're like, it feels weird, but it feels good at the same time. So yeah.
My thought is with that is just how interesting that exploring that discernment as thoughts come. Does this feel like self or self-like parts? And hey, even if they're self-like parts, this is really nice. maybe there's a yumminess and like letting all of this in. anything else? Connie, how are you doing? And I think that I was gonna do a dive, but I think Zoe just took us on such an incredible rich dive. I think we can just kind of stay with what's here for us with this. But I want to see how Connie's doing, especially like the playfulness of it, that this is just the joy and all of this. Just how are you doing with the first time with us?
First, I need to tell you, I keep getting this message of low bandwidth on my computer. So there may be a lag time. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming through perfect.
Yeah, okay. So if you can't, let me know. About 20 minutes into our meeting here, I started experiencing a little bit of a histamine reaction. So one of the manifestations is increased tachycardia, increased heartbeat and palpitations. So I've been experiencing wanting to be pulled to figuring out what's going on, and just being with the part and still having a sense of participation and belonging. And so I didn't experience the going deep down, but I had a memory of it. And for me, it's the movie Gravity, where Sandra Bullock is untethered out in the blackness of space. And that part of me is very different from the collapse part of me that's in the little quiet room all by herself. So my histamine reaction lasts about half an hour, 45 minutes. I can feel it starting to go away now, so I'm more present. But I'm okay.
So how about
It
that? How about the
difficult.
Sandra Bullock? How about Sandra Bullock? How about the sense of being untethered and just being untethered into space for us?
Mhm.
Zoe was describing like this infinite ocean that was
Yeah.
just meaningless, this sense of aloneness in the ocean. And for
Mhm.
you, it's in space. And for Zoe, there was a sense of like sinking down into that, through that emptiness. So she found in that, she found self, she found some qualities of self. What happens for you? And if anything like this is scary, just don't listen to it. Just stay with like blah 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 as we speak about, because that's scary. It's
Charlie
scary for
Brown.
me being untethered into space. It's scary. But what was there for you, Connie, when you did that? When you saw that?
Well, the first time I saw the movie years ago, it
What about right
was
now?
amazing
The sense of
to
being.
see. Well, what I'm trying to say is a comparison of having seen it the first time and just being validated into seeing on screen what's happening within me. So now when I feel it, it's a familiar place. It's an okay place to be because there's a part of me, that part of me I want to connect with, and be there. And it's not such a scary, I'm out in the middle of nowhere all by myself with nobody in the blackness, untethered. It's more like, oh, okay, I'm in this place again. And it's okay.
Got it.
So
All right.
it feels like I get more of myself, more whole.
So for all of us, where does the fear come from? Can we get a sense of, in IFS, there's a sense of self. Dick Schwartz describes it. It can't be diminished and it can't be added to this beingness that is our nature. And sometimes we describe it as the sky. It's always here, this sense of absence of lack, this fulfillment, these qualities, and then their parts. And can we relate to that fear? There's no fear in self, in this beingness, that it's a part. And just notice if we can, as we notice fear arise in our system, for perhaps it's the being untethered in the sky, it's the ocean, it's the aloneness, it's the nothing to hold on to. If we can find where that, if we can become just a little intimate with that fear, like where does it arise? Where does the fear arise? We're not going to get so close to it, but if we just can notice where it arises, Like in Kelly, it was this young girl that was like, no. Like, where does the fear arise in each of us? Let me just open it up. Thank you, Connie. Let me just open this back up again to the group. Is there any final words you wanted to share, Connie, before we see what's here for everyone?
I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, thank you. Let's go. I see Kelly. Let's hear.
Fear for me is in my gut. That's where I feel it.
And then can we find that there's awareness of the fear in the gut? There's awareness of this. This is one of the first gifts of IFS, the idea of being aware of parts. It's like being aware of the fear. It's like we feel like we find it as a sensation in the gut. If we can have awareness of that.
I feel quite distant from it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distance from it.
Nice.
It isn't like consuming.
And this is in IFS, we call this blendedness. We call it like when we blend, it's like when we were consumed by it, to use Kelly's word, and we're unblended from it. There's a distance, a sense of awareness of it. Anything else with that, Kelly?
Quite a lot of peace coming up. Openness as well.
Yes.
I feel like something's opened up.
Let's see if we can discern what's happening for Kelly contrasted with what happens is what Zoe described. These are two different ways of knowing self. As Zoe's aware of the contraction of the fear in her belly, there's some distance. There's awareness of, right? There's just awareness of the parts, the awareness of the arisings. And as we get some distance from that, we notice what's here, what we're aware from. This is the self, this is the being, this is a view that allows us to find home, to find this okay-ness, to find this sanctuary, even in the midst of this contraction and fear, because we will become aware of it. And in Effortless IFS, perhaps there are three basic ways in. There's this one, but that Kelly's describing for us. And then there's a second one, which maybe we got with Inga, this sense of there was self, there was this awareness, and she was just aware of all of her parts. She was aware of the parts. And then there's a sense of welcoming them and an intimacy with them. And this is where a lot of the healing happens in IFS, the second view. Sometimes we call it the infinite hot tub, or we call it like Rumi's guest house. We're just aware of the guest and everything is being welcomed. All right, to see if you can follow this in your system. Like Kelly's just aware of it. Sometimes we call it in Effortless IFS, riding the bike of being. It's just discernment. It's like resting as self. We're being aware of, speaking for our parts, being aware of our parts. And then we go to Inga's, which is the sense of we're aware of the parts, but we go a little different. There's a sense of welcoming them. And there's no need to go that Kelly's is what they call Advaita Vedanta, and they call it Vipassana, and it's the work of Byron Katie. It's a full path, just this discernment. And then there's Inga's, this welcoming. And then there's Kelly, then there's Zoe's. And just notice what do you see as the difference in what Zoe did, what we did in Zoe's? So Zoe's was in Kelly's, there was a sense of leaning back. We're discerning, we're just leaning back into self. In Inga's, there's a sense of being the space that welcomes self. And in Zoe's, there's a sense of leaning forward, leaning into, almost like leaning into the fear of our parts that felt alone. And some even call this going into the heart of darkness. It's like the fear the contraction, the emptiness of our parts, there's a sense of sinking into that, sinking into the sea, the emptiness, the nothingness, the parts that felt lost in fear, and sinking into that. And this isn't anything anyone needs to do. It just sometimes it opens up in our system. If you try to do it, it doesn't work because there'll be a polarity, an equal and opposite reaction. It just doesn't work. But in Zoe's, there's a sense of like leaning in to this and like sinking in through it. It's like going into a part, or sometimes we call this zooming in, like zooming into a part or going into an immanence of a part. And as we go into that, we find we see what we find. We often find self in being this, like just Zoe found, this quiet, this peace, this ok-ness. All right, we've got like 13 minutes left. This is a whole lot we're doing today, and let's just see how everybody's doing with all of this. Anything bubbling for anyone?
I'm just really grateful you do this, these sessions, Sid. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. How's your system doing, Anne? Because it's a lot, and especially when we have parts that come up, say, "Hey, I should be able to do it that way," or or "Why aren't you able to do what Kelly's doing here?" Like just like she's doing it. Like I have parts that are just in awe of what we're seeing in Kelly right now. It's like, how's your system doing, Anne?
Actually, my system is a little overwhelmed. I found myself tuning in and out. So that's the truth.
Yeah. Yes. And so how awesome that we have parts that can tune out for us. Like Kelly described this one that kind of transcends, that can tune out. How awesome. Like, I like turning on Netflix and tuning out for a couple hours. It's like in the midst of it when it's like something knows, well, that's enough. Like Sid keeps talking, keeps using non-duality Anne's word and talk about non-duality. It's like, what? Why do you keep doing this? Is too much. Or like the Zoe path. He keeps talking about that. It's like, isn't it wonderful that we have parts that tune out for us, that take care of us, to keep us from overwhelm? As I keep talking, I'm imagining Anne's parts are like, "Did enough, stop it." And
well, I had a question when the other Anne mentioned non-duality. I've heard that expression, and I was going to ask you what that meant, and then you said it's a sense of self, nothing really separate from it, and also the parts that have been separated are now being welcomed back. Is that your description of non-duality? Yeah, that's my question.
I don't know. It's like you go on YouTube, everybody's got a different way of talking about it. But I love the sense of non-duality, just this lack of separation, or this absence of lack, this fulfillment that's here, or even the heart of self. And non-dual Anne is giving us a thumbs up on it. So, but it's really what's most interesting is finding how our system makes sense of it. Non-dual means just not two. And just notice where you go with that, not two. And we just want to be careful for spiritual achievers that, hey, that means I need to look like this person that sits on the mountain that I have this image of. And just, what does not to mean in your system as we get glimpses of it? And we've all had, like, we keep having people sharing from that perspective today as they speak of self, even as we speak just awareness. But yeah. How are we doing, Anne?
Well, I like this. I like this continued discussion, definition, lack of separation, not to, and I also ask myself, well, is it possible to maintain this awareness of not to throughout my day? And for me, it's not possible. Sometimes I get to it on sessions like this, yes, which is why I'm so grateful for them.
Perfect.
So anyway,
and this is what we're doing, some things that are kind of like in this play that Connie was suggesting. There's I think there's some value in the game and the way we're playing. When we speak about default qualities of self, finding a default quality, I'll continue to speak of like what I was inviting you to do when I asked you, how are you? Like, could you be aware of the parts and also the self, the default quality of self, like the piece that's here, as well as the parts that are feeling lonely and wanting something different. And this is like, I love this word, simultaneous awareness. Like, can we be aware of both of these? Or can we see them all in one view? And that's why we use these metaphors, because this is what's integrating it. With the idea of like having non-duality through the day, that's just a big word for the idea of like, wow, self is present here. Our parts are not alone. This is what we're playing with. Are our parts alone? Can our parts realize that self is here, that okay-ness is here, that peace is here, simultaneous with their being present? How are we doing? Anything that's coming up with what Anne's sharing, or we've got 8 minutes left? What do we want not to miss? What do you have that you'd like to share?
I had quite a big shift in this meeting from quite suddenly. The beginning, when I was talking about my parts and the house with the doors, I love that image, and they're all coming out and starting to chat. And at the beginning, the excitement of they were like jumping around going, mummy's home, we can talk to mummy, we've been on our own and arguing and having fights, but now mummy's home and we can talk to her and she'll sort everything out. That was lovely. Then my perfectionist part came out when you said, how do you describe that beingness, that self? And that part of me that always wants to find the right words. Oh yeah, it's sky, no, it's this, it's that, you know, and the part of me that really wants to express well and can't always find the right words and kind of rushing to do that. And I'm really loving this meeting, by the way. And then I have, I hate labeling things, but I have chronic fatigue. So all of a sudden this tiredness and a lot of aches in my body and that part. And I've just realized in the last few minutes, like, oh, that's the part I haven't really spoken to yet. I haven't given that part a voice. I'm a bit scared of that part. So a lot of thoughts coming in about wanting to go to sleep,
Yes,
and get comfy and things like that, but still wanting to be in the meeting. But yeah.
Here's a question, Anne. The chronic fatigue part, can we all relate to that? A part of us that we really haven't given voice to, space to speak. And so here's my question. In the chronic fatigue part, or whatever that part is in us, can it feel that mommy is here? Which I just absolutely love Anne's expression of this as it's like self is here, mommy's is here, this nurturing maternal love is here, this presence is here. This is all we're talking about when we talk about these this brings the spirituality really home to us. It's a sense that home is here, mommy is here, safety is here, acceptance is here. And then the system gets to relax, the parts get to relax as they get a taste that they're no longer separate. Home is here, there's acceptance here, there's love here, mommy is here. Just notice for your system, the part that's like Anne's chronic fatigue, can it sense that self is here, whatever it is for you? Maybe it's just there's awareness, there's presence, there's calm, whatever it is, there's okay-ness. Mommy is here. Anything else you'd like to chime in, Anne?
Yeah, I think that part saying like, but mummy gets angry sometimes with this part, with the chronic fatigue, with the illness. Mummy gets angry because it slows her down.
So let's look at that. Let's notice for all of us that this beingness, as when I say mommy is here, but then I'm kind of pointing to it as a flavor of this beingness of our nature, of self. Notice that never gets upset. It just is openness. It's welcoming. It's love. It's maternal love. It's care. It's connectedness. See if we can discern that from the parts that be like, gosh, you chronic fatigue part, you slow us down. You're causing problems in our life. We always have to sleep. Those are parts. See if we can just get a clarity in that in all of our systems between the mommy is here, the maternal love, and the parts. How's that, Anne?
Yeah, there's there's a soft mummy and a hard mummy, and she's just communicated. This part's saying, just making me aware of that. There's a soft mummy and a hard mummy.
Nice. It's just that, just the discernment.
The hardness is a part that I'm working on at the moment in myself.
Yeah. And can we all, as we hear Anne's part, the hard mommy, that's like, gosh, this chronic fatigue is a problem. I'm really tired of it. It's exhausting. Can we all feel endearment towards that part and see how it's trying to help the system and compassion for that part? Thank you, Anne. And I noticed we just got a few minutes left, and I was really curious how this is all going for Zoe, who kind of led us on our deep dive exploration today. And then I'd like to also check in to make sure how Kelly's doing. How's it going? What do you find? How you doing, Zoe?
Yeah, I'm okay. And I recognize that I couldn't have got to that place without the support of all of the rest of you, the 6 of you, that it was listening to all of you and your parts that supported me in being able to do that. And then you, Sid, in just kind of leading me so gently to a place that I hadn't considered going, which was kind of just right into it. So enormous gratitude to you all and your parts, and thanks for the connection that's here. It's truly special. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. As we receive the gift of what Zoe just shared with us. Don't want to miss any of this. It's like, oh, I don't want to miss opening these gifts for all of us. And then I'm going to check with Kelly, who also took us on this, like, led us today to see how her system's doing.
I just feel an enormous gratitude. To the group and to myself, that I got to meet that angry little girl, just a glimpse, but I feel like that'll be a start. It's a start to me healing. I'm so grateful to all the love that I felt in this room. There's a part that's coming in the same, but you don't open up like this, but I just feel really safe and welcomed here. So thank you so much for that.
Yes. Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Kelly. As we receive, Kelly, receive that. And we can just take one more minute just to see, Anne, Inga, Connie, any final words, just so we can wrap this all together.
Just want to say thank you to the whole group and to you too. It's been quite an experience. Thank you. Yeah. And I feel connected and like I belong, which is a difficult thing for me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Connie. And Jay?
Well, I feel like I belong here also, which I felt from the beginning, and it has to do with your skill at facilitating these meetings in part, and also everybody else being here talking honestly about themselves. I thirst for that honesty. So I'm really glad to have a place to come to find it. Thank you.
Yes, to belonging. Thank you, Anne. Inga, any final closing words to close us
I
today?
just want to say thank you. Thank you, Sid. It's great as always. And thanks everybody. I mean, it's like you're the facilitator, but everyone brings in, your gifts and it's a real gift. Yeah, I think it's.
See you later. Come back again. Come join us on the IFS non-dual community. That is such a treat today. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.